The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
You may not remember this, but when the Capitals won the Stanley Cup in 2018, and they had that great parade downtown, which wound up with a rally around the Capitol, and T.J. Oshie got up, and he started to chant, back to back, back to back. Well, not only did they not go back to back on Stanley Cups, until last night, they had never won a playoff series. 7 years. The 7-year drought is over. Capitals are moving on. They are playing the Carolina Hurricanes. We just don't know the date yet or the time, but we know it's going to be here. And how far they go, we'll have to see, but at least they win a first-round series. And the further they go, the crazier it gets around here. You may remember the chase to the Cup. I mean, that was such a wonderful spring here. I mean, think about where the world was at that point. It was a couple of years before the pandemic. People were gathering in big groups downtown, outdoor watch parties, and they did not win the Cup at home. They won it on the road at Vegas. In fact, all the series that they won on their way to the Cup were on the road. Kind of crazy. But the celebration when they brought the Cup home from Vegas made it all worthwhile. Alex Ovechkin took that Cup all over town. There was like a week-long celebration. And one of the best scenes I remember is that they came to a Nats game. This was a couple days after they won the Cup. They won it, I believe, on a Thursday night. So they played a Saturday afternoon game at Nats Park, and Ovechkin and the rest of the Caps were coming in to throw out the first ball, and then they were going to go to a suite. And we were told, I was watching the game, it was on Masson, and we were told, yeah, they're going to stay probably an inning or two or leave. Players stayed for the whole game, and the great scene was that they had stacked up the blue Bud Light cans almost so it covered the entire window from the luxury suite. It was just a great time. They're a long way from doing that. They got to win more series, but at least they got the chance to do it. And this was the John Walton call as they wrapped it up last night.
Everyone standing here in the nation's capital. The Caps are moving on as the puck goes far wing. Chipped up in the air by Trevor Van Riemsdyk to the Montreal line. For the first time since 2018, the Capitals nailed down a best-of-7 series. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Montreal. Logan Thompson and the Capitals are moving on to round 2.
Interesting that he said Logan Thompson and the Capitals because, for 20 years, we've been saying Alex Ovechkin and the Capitals. And Ovi did have the first goal last night. I don't know if you saw it, but it was right off a face-off. Boom! It's like a shot out of a cannon. And they were able to hold on to that lead the entire night. They went up 2-0 in the first period, went up 3-0. And then Montreal got a goal in the third, but the Caps close it out 4-1. Thompson with 28 saves last night. He finished the series with a 4-1 record. Remember, he got knocked out in Game 3, and there was some question whether he was going to come back and play in Game 4, which he did. Played incredibly well last night, and had a 92% save percentage for the series. Averaged 2.2 goals given up. This is the coach, Spencer Carberry.
I've said it before, he's a gamer, man. And for him to come back Game 4 and after the way we played as a group in Game 3 and just two incredible performances in Game 4 and Game 5. And this time of year, it's such a big part because, like we've talked about, the line is so fine of wins and losses, one goal here, one goal there, and he's been outstanding in the series in the last 2 games. A big reason why we end up on the right side of that fine line in these 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, the fine line, they did win the final game by 3 goals, and they win the series 4-1, but this is how Carberry opened up the news conference.
To me, that wasn't a 4-1 series. I don't know if Marty said that, but we found ways to win some of those games, but they pushed us in every single one of those games, and so huge congratulations to them and their organization, and Marty did a phenomenal job with that team.
The clincher last night, and it seemed to me that the Capitals were in control all the way. I mean, it seemed like the puck was at the other end of the ice pretty much the entire first period. But Carbery obviously has much finer eye for this, and this is how he assessed what went down last night.
It was a weird game. And you could feel it. We were off early. Felt like it was a little bit of nerves, some touches. We turned it over a couple times in some key situations, and now all of a sudden, even LT's touch early, he gives it right back to him. They're shooting it right at the net. I think we're getting outshot 8-2 or something like that early in the game, and you're like, whew, okay. And then we settle in a little bit, and then we find the goals. Power play was massive tonight. Like, we needed to capitalize, and their goaltender played phenomenal, no question. Like, we had some really, really good looks, but we also gave up a ton of good quality looks, and LT had to be good tonight because it never felt comfortable through that game. You still felt like they were getting good looks. They were getting clean entries, finding second wave. Matheson, I remember getting into a good spot, and we get fortunate. We get a block. Like, there was a lot of dangerous situations that Montreal put us in tonight, but credit to our guys. We dig in. We block some shots. LT, like I said, was phenomenal. Special team steps up, and we hang on and find a way to grind it out.
Yeah, I mean, you look at where they were in 2018. There are only 4 players left. Only 4 players left from that team, but 2 very key players, because you remember that Alex Ovechkin was the MVP of the finals. And on this team, where I've been looking at this for the last couple of years with the goal chase for Wayne Gretzky, and I'm thinking, oh, God, they're going to have to drag this aging player across the finish line, and he has been key for them. And just as 7 years ago, Tom Wilson, and, you know, the way Tom Wilson plays, the physical style that he plays, 7 years is a long time. And to still be at the top of his game and delivering what may have been the turning point in this series, the hit in Game 4 where the Caps were behind and the puck came loose. They tie the game and they go on to win in Game 4 and set up the clincher last night. This was Ovechkin and Wilson last night on that turning point question.
You know my answer. Game 4, third period, Tom Wilson.
I think we had control of the series from Game 1, which was great. Obviously, there's going to be ups and downs, but take Game 1, take Game 2, obviously a bit of a crazy Game 3, and then, you know, right back to business. So there's ups and downs in a playoff series, but I think for the most part we were pretty focused and we were pretty diligent, and we went out and got the job done.
Yeah, and they did it in this physical style, and that's going to have to continue against Carolina, obviously. Wilson on that.
I think that's why everybody loves the sport of hockey, is because there's guys on both sides of the puck that are willing to do whatever they have to for their team. And, you know, they have a couple of those guys, and we have a bunch of guys in our room, pretty much everybody that's willing to stick up for the guy next to him and play hard. And, you know, we knew that they were going to play kind of cheap and try and get us off our game. So it got crazy at times, but that's why hockey's so fun, and that's why we all love the sport, and we love playing, and we love competing. So it was a heck of a physical series, but that's what playoffs is all about.
Yeah, it's turning out to be a heck of a spring around here, right? I mean, the Nats are scuffling for sure. They lost again last night in Philadelphia, but the announcement this week for the stadium, and there's a lot that has to be done, and there's pushback from the city council and all the drama that they're going to have to go through, and July 15th is a key date. Either they have a deal then or they have an extension for a deal, which is likely to happen. This is going to go on for a while. But, you know, to think that here it is 2 years after the ownership changed, and we've seen this team go to the NFC Championship game. There's a franchise quarterback in town, and they have a deal to put the stadium where everybody wants it to be, pending city council approval, and the Capitals may be making a run to the Stanley Cup. And depending on how the ping pong balls bounce later this month, maybe Cooper Flagg winds up with the Washington Wizards. So this could turn out to be a magical spring. Not that Cooper Flagg is going to turn them into contenders right away, but that's going to be a big building block if they can get them. Speaking of the stadium, the story in the Metro section today, about FedEx, not FedEx, but Northwest. And I still can't get used to that. Northwest Stadium in Prince George's County, and what becomes of that area. Now, the Commanders have already agreed to pay for the cost of tearing it down. That was part of the backroom dealing that took place, which allowed that vote to take place after midnight on December 21st, and cleared the way for D.C. to own the land that the stadium is on, or the stadium would be on in D.C., and then what becomes of what we have in Landover. You know, the story got me thinking. I really, hadn't thought of it in these terms, but this stadium was such a disaster from the beginning that it never, ever developed anything around that would make you want to, spend time other than what it takes to get in and out of the parking lots and go to the games, because that's what stadiums do now. It's a totally different ballgame, which is why they had to do the lease deal for the RFK site to rezone it so it can be commercial. That's been neighborhood. I mean, when they built DC Stadium in 1961, they weren't thinking about bars and restaurants around it. They just said, well, this is a good spot for it. We'll build the stadium here, and we'll play baseball games and we'll play football games there. And it'll be in use, 81 days, or, well, they used to play some doubleheaders, so let's say 70 days for baseball. And in those days, 3 exhibition games and 7 regular season games, so 10. So it's being used for about 80 days a year, and nobody really thought about the commercial aspect of it. Well, that's all key now, and that was in place for FedEx Field. Now, it was thrown up in a hurry. Jack Kent Cooke, put up a 36-month project at 18 months, and it was never good from the beginning. But I was reminded in this story, I'd completely forgotten about this, but there was a mall across the street, Landover Mall, and that closed up in the early days of the stadium, like 2001, 2002. In fact, the first couple of years, fans were saving the $45 to park and parking across the street at the mall and then walking across, and then they shut down Bright Seat Road for pedestrian traffic because they wanted to collect the bucks. And then I don't know what has ever become of the mall, but there's no restaurants, nothing around there. You just go to the game. And yeah, there's some tailgating, and tailgating there is going to be is better than it's going to be at the new stadium, because there's just not going to be enough spots to do that. But this is interesting in terms of what it has meant to Prince George's County. And Wes Moore, who the governor, who has made a push to get the team to stay in Maryland, was showing up at practices and things like that, and lobbying for that. But that's his job in the state. But I think in his heart of hearts, he knew that the constituents all wanted it to be in D.C. But he said in this story in the Post, frankly, that area, meaning the area around the stadium, is a disappointment. He said it's one of the worst football experiences. What are we going to see in the future? It will be better. He told reporters that even though the team's promises are in a non-binding agreement, I am very confident they're going to hold on to their word, meaning that they're going to hold on to their word to tear down the stadium. I guess that's, I guess they have to reserve the right to stay there if this deal with the district falls through. But listen to this. Northwest Stadium has not been a major tax generator for Prince George's County. The stadium brought in almost $9 million in 2024, the highest total since 2017, according to data provided by the county. During the height of the pandemic, when the team was winning fewer than half its games, the annual total was down to about $4.8 million. Not all pandemic too, because you go back to 2017. That was a few years before the pandemic, but they were at the pits. They were at the low end there, and nobody was going to the games, and those who were rooting for the other team. And so, $9 million in revenue for the state for an entire year. That includes concerts and other events that they've had there. It just has been just a complete mess, complete disaster. And, when you think about going back, was it 30, it's about 31 years, I think, when they had a deal in place to build the stadium. And then they started construction. I think they started construction like in 95, and they're opening up in 1997. So yeah, they really cut some corners. And to Snyder's credit, I know it's hard to give him credit for anything, but to his credit to some degree, he actually had to dump some money into the stadium just to make it a little bit more inhabitable when he took over. Of course, he became sort of a slumlord there to the point where sewage was dropping on people and railings were collapsing when they were trying to get Jalen Hurts' autograph and things like that. But now they have a deal, and let's hope it holds up. But what becomes of that spot? Because really, nobody was going to that area before they built the stadium there. And now that people have been used to going there, what do they do with it? What becomes of an area, and will people actually, make use of it? I guess people in Prince George's County would. I guess some of it would be parkland, things like that. But the Commanders do own the land. They own the land. So we'll see where all that goes. But they do still need that, I guess, as something of a backstop. You know what's going to be interesting is if this stadium deal falls through in the district, and I don't think it will, but will there be some actual threats to move the team? I don't think they would, but, you got to play some hardball here. And that's got to be in play. We've seen teams move all the time in the NFL. The Raiders have been back and forth between Oakland and Los Angeles, and now they're in Vegas. I mean, could that conceivably be? I don't think so, because these are all local guys, and I believe this deal is going to get done. But when you get into hard negotiations, some ugly things are often take place. All right, coming up, we'll get to the Lakers last night as they make their exit and the annual Will I Stay or Will I Go drama from LeBron. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
The next hour, we'll try and unpack the Bill Belichick mess, which seems to get messier by the day. There's some new information about Jordan Hudson, the 24-year-old girlfriend, and how she's had something of a financial windfall since they've met. Many, many details on this, and it gets more and more disturbing about a coach who just a few years ago was considered to be, and maybe still is considered to be, the greatest coach of all time. But, man, this is really frightening stuff, what seems to be happening here. Lakers are done. The deal to get Luka Doncic and team him with LeBron James. Oh, there they go. They got the makings of a championship team. This could be a team that wins it all. And then they go out in 5 last night, at home with a 103-96 loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And J.J. Redick's going to get criticized for this. He already has been, that he went small. And Rudy Gobert last night for the T-Wolves looked like Wilt Chamberlain. These are the numbers that Wilt used to put up. Gobert had 27 points and 24 rebounds. And most of those 27 points were on wide-open dunks. There just wasn't anybody to guard him in the middle. And with Luka, you get no defense. With LeBron, you get limited defense. And without a big man to put a body on him, that's what you get. And a season that had plenty of hype. Once that deal was made in February, oh, my God, Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic. That's the most ridiculous, lopsided trade I have ever seen. Wow, earth-shattering. And then Luka and LeBron start to play together pretty well. They get the 3rd seed in the West, and they did it again. Now they're done. Kendrick Perkins on last night with Scott Van Pelt after the Lakers loss, trying to sort out what happened there.
I actually picked the Lakers to win this series in 7. I did not expect this to go this way. I knew the Minnesota Timberwolves were a physical, athletic team with a lot of length, but it really showed in this series, and they showed a lot of heart, and they showed that they're all in. And it started off with their 2 bigs, Julius Randle and Big Rudy Gobert is what I call him. I mean, he was a beast all night long. He's really been a beast, Scott, in this series. They've been trying to pick on him, but his numbers didn't show up in the first few games of this series, but his defense has been there. But tonight he attacked the offensive glass. He imposed his will in the paint. He got it done on the defensive side of things. Offensively putting it back, going up strong, and Julius Randle in the 4th quarter. I mean, taking over the 4th quarter when Anthony Edwards was struggling. And speaking of Anthony Edwards, Scott, can we talk about this young man being the best young leader in the game of basketball? On a night when he struggled, trusting his teammates, and 8 assists, 11 rebounds, doing everything else that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. I'm so impressed by this Minnesota Timberwolves team, and I got to give them a lot of flowers.
Perk, you know how they do in the playoffs, right? When there's guys are sitting there in the presser and they're looking at the box score. Man, if I circle a couple of these numbers, 7 for 47 from 3 and 0 for 11 from 3 and 15. If I read you that before the game, you're saying the Timberwolves got smashed. They didn't, in large part because of Gobert. And that's a guy, Perk, that, like, people talk about this dude sometimes like he's some kind of a bum or a scrub. And I know Luka enjoyed going after him last year in the playoffs. That had to feel tremendous for him to be the guy. He had 8 dunks in this game, no one to protect the rim. I mean, as much as anything, he's the reason they won this game, is he not?
Absolutely, Scott. And look, he got his lick back, right? And look, they tried to go at him. They tried to search him out all throughout this series. And when you go and look at the numbers, the Lakers only shot like 28% against him in his one-on-one defense. He did a hell of a job on the perimeter the entire series, sliding his feet. This man is a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year for a reason. Right. And I'm glad Rudy rose to the occasion on the road with a monster game tonight. I'm happy for him because he does take a lot of criticism. I've been critical of him at times, but I also respect of what he brings to the table.
The role that J.J. Redick plays in this series will get a lot of scrutiny because he was all in with the starters in the game on the road over the weekend, right? They played the entire second half. And LeBron's 40 years old. He's the only 40-year-old we've ever seen play at this level, but there's only so much tread on anyone's tires. What role did Redick's plan play in what happened this evening, Perk?
Hey, I'm J.J. Redick. I know basketball more than anybody in the world. I'm going to stick with this small ball lineup. No matter how big the Minnesota Timberwolves are, I'm going to do it my way because I only care about offense. Forget the fact that they have Rudy and Julius Randle has been punishing us in the paint. Jaden McDaniels has been going off in this series. I'm going to stick with a 40-year-old LeBron James playing the center position. And guess what? If Finney Smith gets in foul trouble, I'm going to go with Maxi Kleber. I'm going to bring him into the game and hope that he could go in there and mix it up. Scott, it was ridiculous. I never want to do this and blame a series on one individual, but I have to blame this series on J.J. Redick because when it comes down to the postseason, as a coach, you have to make adjustments. And when you see that things aren't going as planned, the 2-3 zone trapping Anthony Edwards is not working because he is growing right in front of our eyes and picking it apart. When you see that you need a guy like Jackson Hayes in the lineup, but you're only thinking about offense because that's what you want to do, and you lose this series in 5, then you have to take the blame for this because you didn't make any adjustments whatsoever to adjust to this team and help your 40-year-old aging superstar LeBron James out, who was battling in the trenches all season long, all series long.
He did, and look, the trade of early February that sent Luka there, shockwaves, and they're still dealing with it in Dallas. But in the end of it, Perk, this is a first-round exit where the Lakers win one game, and we wonder, what's the future look like for LeBron? Because, look, we're going to wake up one day, Perk, and he's going to be over, right? Man's a billionaire. He's going to pivot into other things. Yep. It won't be this. And I'm not saying that's now, but, like, you don't have to squint too hard to see it. There won't be unlimited runway here. I'm just asking, what's the assessment you make in the moment of what the Lakers are now looking at?
Well, I mean, listen, when you have LeBron James playing at the level and you actually have a shot, the Lakers had a legitimate shot at making it to the NBA Finals this season. You're supposed to maximize that. I don't know what the future holds for LeBron James. I don't believe he knows what it holds, right? It's going to take him some time to sit back, decompress, and gather his thoughts. But I will say this, right? One thing the Lakers do have, they have an international superstar in Luka. And the one thing we know about Jeanie Buss and the history of the Lakers, they love superstars. Long as they're filling up butts in the seats and selling jerseys, they're going to be just fine, and that's just the way it is.
100% spot on. by Kendrick Perkins on the Lakers' history. We'll get to what LeBron said last night about his future. This is an annual thing, and it's always very dramatic, and he always comes back, and he will come back. I'll explain that in a moment. But you think about the Lakers' history, and this is way pre-Jeannie Buss. They drafted George Mikan when they were in Minneapolis. George Mikan was the first superstar in the NBA, mainly because of his height. But they didn't have guys that big. I think he was 6'10", and centers were playing at like 6'6", 6'5" in those days. So he was dominant. The Lakers won a bunch of titles in Minneapolis. And then they drafted Elgin Baylor after the Mikan era had pretty much fizzled out. Baylor wasn't good enough to win on his own, but then they moved to Los Angeles and they draft Jerry West. And with West and Baylor, two of the best players in the game, they were almost annually meeting the Boston Celtics. And annually, they were losing to the Boston Celtics. Those 8 straight titles that the Celtics won, I think 6 of them were against the Lakers. And Jerry West went to his grave refusing to go back to Boston. That's how much he had awful feelings of losing there so many times at the Boston Garden. But finally, late in the careers of West, and unfortunately for Baylor, it was his last year. He only played like 8 or 9 games that year. They had gotten him a few years earlier, but by the time everybody was ready to go, that Wilt Chamberlain had been acquired by the Lakers. And Wilt Chamberlain had been a part of one of the great teams of all time with the Philadelphia 76ers in 1967. But when they didn't win in 1968, Wilt wanted out. Jack Ramsey, the great Jack Ramsey, was the general manager of the Sixers at the time. He told me this, that Wilt said, if you don't trade me to the Lakers, I'm jumping to the ABA. So Jack made the best deal he could, sent him to the Lakers. You can't get value for the superstar like that. You can't trade Wayne Gretzky for value, as the Edmonton Oilers, of course, found out and knew really going in. So with that, Baylor had to retire, but West was still there, and they finally won the championship. Unfortunately for West, they didn't get to play the Celtics in those finals. They played the Knicks, but he got his one championship in 1972. That way. So after the Wilt era comes to an end in 1973, a couple years later, they get Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And Kareem isn't quite good enough to get the Lakers over the top, but some very shrewd maneuvering by Jerry West, who is the general manager at this point, where he trades an aging Gail Goodrich to the New Orleans Jazz because the Jazz, they want another guard to team up with Pete Maravich. And they get the pick that the Jazz had. That was the number 1 pick, as it turned out, in 1979. They get Magic Johnson. So you got Magic Johnson teaming up with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They win 5 championships, right, along the way. And then comes the Kobe era, as West does it again. Shrewd maneuvering. Gets Kobe Bryant, who was the 12th pick of the draft. Land Shaq. They win 3 straight titles, Shaq and Kobe. Kobe continues. Kobe wins more championships without Shaq, back-to-back titles. And then you get to the point where, okay, they can get LeBron, and they got LeBron. And now it's been sort of a torch pass to Luka Doncic. So you look at the lineage from Luka all the way back to George Mikan, Perk is 100% right. They always have a high-profile superstar on that team. Now, some of it has to do with the fact that they are the Lakers, and the Lakers automatically make a player a superstar if he's close, and also the fact that it's a destination that people want to go to. And I think that was a big factor for LeBron when he was leaving Cleveland, that he wanted to go to Los Angeles because he has interest in movies and so forth. And, that's one of those places that if you're mega rich, it's really a good life. Really expensive to live there, but if you can afford to do it, aside from earthquakes and wildfires and things like that, it's a wonderful place to live. Anyway, this was something that we've seen in recent years with LeBron. After the exit, long face, meeting with the media, and the question, obviously, at the age of 40, having just completed his 22nd year, what about the future?
How many more years will we see you play? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Something I sit down with my family, my wife, and my support group, and kind of just talk through it and see what happens, and then just have a conversation with myself on how long I want to continue to play. I don't know the answer to that right now, to be honest. So we'll see.
LeBron, kind of too along those lines. Did you know? There's belief, and teams always believe to a degree. This team had like that real. It seemed like that real, genuine belief. Did that energize you in ways, challenge you mentally and physically in ways that you could see wanting to do more of this? Having that opportunity?
No. You know, I walk into the practice facility and walk into this arena with high energy all the time, you know, and I just try to spill that to my teammates. I try to spill the belief into my teammates, play as hard as I can, do whatever I can out on the floor while I have the opportunity to do it, but you know, I think the only thing is it's up to me if I want to, you know, continue to play or how long I want to continue to play. It's ultimately up to me, so it has nothing to do about anybody else.
Okay, well, that makes sense. But the other factor in this is that money probably doesn't matter. He's already a billionaire. So these are eye-popping numbers. At the age of 40, he's got a player option for next season worth $52.6 million. $52 million. I always go back to this. I think Kareem's top salary was about $2 million. I think. $52.6 million. And it's a player option, meaning that if he opts out by June 29th, he'll become a free agent. Will he go to another team? No, I don't think so. He's already got Bronny with him with the Lakers. But I believe he will opt out because he can get more money. You know, he can sign another deal to get more cash, and they can spread out the money, I guess, a little bit better. And then they've got the situation with Luka Doncic because August 2nd, the Lakers will be able to offer him a 4-year, $297 million contract. 4 years, $297, and they're going to do it. Obviously, they're not going to let him go. But I just don't know how you hold this together and have a championship team when you're pretty much locked into two superstars there for just mind-blowing amounts of money. But I don't think there's any chance that LeBron doesn't play next year. I just don't. I think he loves the attention that comes along with this. I think he loves the drama of, oh, you're going to play some more, LeBron? He's already proven this. At the age of 40, nobody has ever played better at this age than LeBron. You know, what he was trying to do this year, he didn't pull it off. But Michael Jordan, when he was 40, he wasn't this good. But Michael Jordan, at age 40, played all 82 games for the Wizards in his final year, 2002, 2003. He was trying to do that. So he's still chasing Jordan. He's got 4. Jordan's got 6. And I don't think he's going to be able to get 6. I don't even think he's going to play long. Well, I guess he could conceivably play 2 years, but they're not going to win back-to-back titles. It's too much based on 2 players, and committing the amount of money that they have, they just really can't build around them. Plus, you got, you know, I think what he might try to pull off, because he pulled it off successfully with Bronny, he's got another kid that's going to school this year. I don't think it's USC. He's going to another school. But he's going to play basketball this year in college, which would make him eligible to be one and done. And could LeBron bring both boys with him to the Lakers? I mean, all those things could be in play. But this is an annual story. This is like every spring. LeBron goes out. He did win a title in 2020, so he did deliver for the Lakers as he did for Cleveland. But you know, I mean, the idea of looking long term, building around a 40-year-old guy. I know you got Luka, but you know, how much sense does that make? But the drama, he just loves it. I mean, we've seen this year after. Looks like we've been watching this scene for like 10 years, where he just comes out, long face. Yeah, I don't know what I got to do. I got to talk to my family. Got to see what I want to do. This happens year after year after year. All right, adjustments are always made in the NFL. And off the year that Jayden Daniels had, our defensive coordinators cooking up with something that they can help control him to a degree in this upcoming season. Now you start the hand-wringing. Okay, C.J. Stroud took a step back last year, even though the Texans made the playoffs. Could there be something of a sophomore slump? I think defensive coordinators knew what kind of skills he had, but they didn't know how football savvy he was about being able to play the checkmate game with them, and the way he was able to sniff out what kind of defense he was seeing and adjusting and so forth. So now the game of chess continues as defensive coordinators have had an off season, or are having an off season, I should say, to learn how to control him to some degree. This was a topic of conversation on NFL Live yesterday with Marcus Spears and Devin McCourty. So you got defensive lineman, defensive back, former defensive back, former defensive lineman. McCourty won a couple of Super Bowls with the Patriots, and Swagoo, as they call him, had about a 10, 11-year career in the NFL. This is first what Spears says he would do in looking at the way he would be able to possibly control Jayden Daniels.
First, my focus would be, how in the hell are we supposed to stop him when you can't play with 13 people? That would be my first question. The second one I would ask is, how do we want to make Jayden Daniels play? And I think you implement what teams tried to do to Lamar, and then Lamar started taking advantage of keep him in the pocket. And I know it sounds simple, because the back-breaking plays happen when he's outside of the pocket, either with his legs or being able to get the ball out of his hands. But now it's about condensing. Now it's about having a rush plan that's very smart, having 4 guys up front that hopefully you can try to get after the quarterback without having to commit more guys into the rush. And then at times, take your chances with pressure. The problem is he's so advanced at playing from the pocket. He understands that rhythm and time. And what does the Commanders do? They go and make it harder by adding Deebo Samuel, a guy that you can get the ball in multiple ways without Jayden Daniels having to push the ball down the field and still making explosive plays. So it'll be interesting to see how they would defend him, but that would be the plan that I would deploy.
I love what Swagoo is saying, especially the perspectives. He's a defensive lineman. Yeah. I was a cornerback. So when he says that, keep him in the pocket, we had to trust those big guys up front that they were going to actually keep him in the pocket, and then plays weren't going to be 10 seconds long. But he said, you think about it last year, Cliff Kingsbury comes over. He's a first-time coordinator for the Commanders. I love that. And then Jayden Daniels, he's a rookie. So teams are going in not knowing, all right, we're figuring out in the middle of the season, we're getting tempo. We're getting a bunch of 4x1 sets. Now going into year 2, everybody will expect that. But something that Marcus ended with, when you add a guy like Deebo Samuel for a second-year quarterback, give a new wrinkle. He is going to be that new wrinkle. Where they line him up, how they choose to use him. Will he be in the backfield? Will he do some of the things that an Austin Eckler did last year? Will he be able to throw those screens out to him on the outside? And then the second part of it is protection for a quarterback going into year 2. We saw C.J. Stroud this past year struggle with getting hit and his offensive lineman giving up sacks. You bring in a Laramie Tunsil and you solidify that offensive line, that gives Jayden Daniels all the confidence in the world.
Yeah, hopefully he's going to be a headache for teams for a long, long time. I don't think we're going to see a repeat of the RG3 debacle where he had the spectacular rookie year and then things flamed out. One thing is, fortunately, very fortunately, Jayden Daniels isn't coming back from a major injury, and he should be able to hit the ground running. They're already doing OTAs. They've already started off-season workouts, and I guess minicamp will take place in about 5 or 6 weeks. I think it's like early, mid-June, and then they take off until training camp starts in late July. So that's that's fun. It's fun to be in an off season where you don't really have quarterback questions. The only questions are like, well, could he take a step back, and if he takes a step back, how far will he go? But I think, from what I've observed, and I hope I'm right, but I think that he's just going to keep moving forward. And it's not inconceivable within 3 or 4 years that he is going to be considered the best quarterback in the league. And the timing of the new stadium is really interesting because you're talking about 5 more years at Northwest Stadium. So he's now 23, maybe 24. So he played 5 years in college. So you're talking about 28, 29 when he moves into the new stadium. That is absolute prime time for a quarterback. Okay, let me get to the Bill Belichick Michigas and the follow-up on that, what he said, what CBS said, and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 6.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So you've probably heard this by now, but just in case you haven't, this goes back to Sunday, CBS Sunday morning. Bill Belichick was being profiled to promote a book that he's written about his life, The Art of Winning. And everything was going okay for a while, but towards the end of the piece, which runs about 8.5 minutes, there is something that goes on with Jordan Hudson, who is Bill Belichick's girlfriend. Now, this has been a little bit creepy from the beginning for me. I mean, he's 73 years old. And he's got she's now 24, but was 23 when they started dating. I mean, I understand, he's wealthy and I guess he's still vibrant that he's going to be coaching North Carolina this year. But the whole thing has been kind of odd from the beginning. And whenever you see them together, she seems to be wearing as little clothing as possible. Maybe that's the old man in me talking, but it just seems odd. So, anyway, things start to take a turn here when Belichick is asked this question, and it's a book question, but then you'll hear how Jordan Hudson gets involved in what is seemingly a one-on-one interview.
It's also been a momentous year for Belichick. He was named head coach of the University of North Carolina, the result of a messy split from Robert Kraft and the Patriots in early 2024.
He's got a cold, so I'm not going to kiss him.
I have to ask about Robert Kraft because 24 years together, 6 Super Bowls. Unless I'm wrong, he's not in this book. How come?
He's not. Well, again, it's about my life lessons in football, and it's really more about the ones that I experienced directly.
But he's not even in the acknowledgement section.
Correct.
Do you feel like you were treated with dignity and respect when you were let go by Robert Kraft?
Yeah, well, it was a mutual decision for us to part ways.
He said fired.
It was a mutual decision.
The other change for Belichick is 24-year-old Jordan Hudson, his creative muse, as he writes in his book.
Make sure that that's the
Jordan was a constant presence during our interview.
You have Jordan right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
It's a topic neither one of them is comfortable commenting on, though Hudson has recently posted about it on Instagram.
You joined InstaFace, as you put it. I love that. There's some great pictures of you and Jordan, where you're a fisherman and she's a mermaid. It's charming. It's a different side of you. What's the reaction been like?
What's it been like?
To have these different sort of photos. There's another one where you're doing, I know you're not into meditation or yoga or Pilates. You're balancing Jordan on your feet, and she's doing kind of the Titanic pose.
Yeah, so I'm on some of those social media platforms, but I honestly don't follow them.
So that was Sunday. Today is Thursday. In the last few days, this has ramped up considerably. And we've watched this coach for 30 years do news conferences where he's in complete control of the narrative. He grumbles through questions he doesn't want to answer. We're on to Cincinnati. He doesn't do very many one-on-one interviews, but never did you say to yourself, he's not in control of what's going on here. And now it's gotten to the point where people are going, whoa, what's going on here? He's being controlled by this 24-year-old woman. So Belichick put out a statement yesterday. I assume he wrote it. I think you got to think that there's a possibility that Jordan Hudson wrote this, but he called it a, quote, false narrative that Hudson is trying to control him. He said the segment presented, quote, selectively edited clips and stills from a few minutes of the interview to suggest a false narrative that Jordan was attempting to control the conversation, which is simply not true. He said, I clearly communicated with my publicist at Simon & Schuster that any promotional interviews that I participated in would agree to focus solely on the contents of the book. Unfortunately, that expectation was not honored during the interview. Now, I can't imagine CBS agreeing to that, and they put out a statement of their own which said, no, there were no preconditions or limitations to the interview. When we agreed to speak with Mr. Belichick, it was for a wide-ranging interview. There were no preconditions or limitations to this conversation. This was confirmed repeatedly with his publisher before the interview took place and after it was completed. Okay, so there's those two sides. There's also this from Ross Tucker, now does a variety of things, does color on many football games and has his own podcast, frequently a guest on the Dan Patrick Show as he was yesterday, and he relayed his experience as a player with the New England Patriots when Belichick was the coach and what he observed about Belichick and his control of the media.
Every morning, he would walk on the treadmill, incline, and he would read the clips of everything that was said about the Patriots and everything that was said about the opponent. And then the first time you meet with the media as a player is Wednesday at lunch. So in the Wednesday morning team meeting, he would tell you exactly what the storylines were for the week, what questions you were going to be asked, and what your response was to be. So we played Jacksonville in the 05 wildcard round, and it was going to be really cold in Foxborough. So the first thing he said, they're all going to ask you about the weather. Weather's no factor. It's the same for both teams. I mean, he was by far the most conscious of and involved in media relations of any coach I was ever with, which I thought was fascinating that he cared that much. I didn't really understand why he cared that much, but he micromanaged any comments that any players made to the media. So it's really interesting to now see him on the kind of wearing the other shoe, and now he's the one more or less being micromanaged with these media interviews.
Yeah. I mean, it would seem like if he was in control, you would have heard him say, Jordan, it's okay, I got this. But she's the one that steps in and says, oh, not answering that. And there's also a report that she stormed out and was hoping that he would follow her while this interview was taking place. He did not, apparently, and completed the interview. And again, it was an odd look, too, that he was not wearing North Carolina gear, but he was wearing this, not only was it an old Navy sweatshirt, it was a torn Navy sweatshirt with fraying at the collar, and maybe it belonged to his dad, and there's a good story behind it, but we never heard that. It was just very, very odd to look at. And then watching this woman who's, basically leading him around by the nose the way it looked. So there's more follow-up on this. Dan Patrick yesterday talked to Luke DeCock, who is a columnist with the Raleigh News and Observer in the area that Belichick is now in at North Carolina. And he had some really keen observations on this. I'm sure he's written about this and will write some more about it. But this was Luke DeCock yesterday with Dan Patrick and his reaction to what he saw in that CBS interview.
The fact that they put in the clip of her objecting to talking about their meet cute, like if you're in the business, right, you massage sources and you can we talk about, there's not a quid pro quo, but a negotiation that happens there. And that stuff does not make it on screen. So the idea that they would show that and make it part of their interview suggests that, like, their producers, whatever their limit is, she went so far across it. Yeah. And imagine, like, I love to think about the idea of UNC saying, oh no, we have another Jordan Brand crisis. And and here we are. He's not even wearing a UNC sweatshirt. right? He's wearing this Navy t-shirt or whatever it is with a hole in it. She's got a Navy sweatshirt on. It's like, you're going to embarrass us. And you can't even represent the brand right. So, I mean, it's just like, even before we knew who she was or cared who she was, this whole thing has just been ludicrous. And now that we've got into this sort of off-field Instagram media polishing, whatever you want to call it, it's just like there's not a big enough tent to throw over the circus right now.
What is your biggest concern? Let's just look at her role. You know, Bill has relinquished control, and he was a control freak when he coached, you know, in the NFL. And let's just look at it football-wise with this team. What concerns you here?
Well, I mean, they've got sort of a average level college staff. They've got room for all of his kids, and Mike Lombardi's son is on the staff, and former players. I wrote that they're kind of looting Chapel Hill like Halliburton looted Baghdad, but the reality is UNC kind of asked him to do this. They gave him the giant bag of money. He's just spending it. It's hard to portray yourself as the 33rd NFL team, like nobody's thought of this before. When you've got all this other stuff going on, and like, all right, they're going to practice without numbers on the jerseys. And it's like, they're acting like they just invented the steam engine. And it's just like, college football is not a sport that's lacked sort of innovation or coaching introspection or over coaching. The idea that you're going to come in and just be smarter than everyone else, we certainly haven't seen that bear fruit yet. They lost their best defensive lineman to the portal. The quarterback they ended up buying in the portal is from South Alabama. And look, he may be very good. Certainly Cam Ward jumped up levels and other guys have, but it's still South Alabama and just going up against now ACC future NFL cornerback. So there are a lot of sort of questions just on the football side of things. And there were from the moment he was hired. This is a program that hasn't won an ACC title in 45 years. Basically, the age gap between him and Jordan is how long it's been since they've won an ACC title.
You're killing it here, Luke. I like this. Are they going to do a Jordan Brand logo with her?
My sense is, The Athletic had a story today about how the Hard Knocks thing fell, or really sort of the TikTok and how, not really a why or a how, but sort of that the Hard Knocks thing fell apart. My sense is North Carolina has spent more man, woman, person hours on Jordan Hudson related issues in the last 4 months than they ever possibly could have expected. Lawyers, PR people, athletic department people. I mean, I wrote a column a couple of weeks ago about they've got a dozen people listed on the UNC system staff payroll website who are identified as members of the football staff. This is sort of Mike Lombardi's team, the GM office, the front office. Mm-hmm. They're all identified as football people on social media, UNC. They're not on the athletic department website. Their hirings have never been announced. And when I asked the athletic director's chief of staff what was going on, her response was, we're looking into it. So it's like Rocco Lampone building his secret regime in The Godfather. Nobody really knows what's going on. There's no oversight as far as anyone can tell. And this whole thing is kind of, it's like a Tesla on auto drive. You just don't know what it's going to hit first.
Yeah, it's careening down the road. It really is. And then, the instinct that you might have when you look at a very, very young woman with an elderly man, and we have to call Bill Belichick at 73 elderly. I guess I'm in that category too, but he is still coaching college football. I understand that, and maybe is looking to get back in the NFL and break Don Shula's record at some point. But boy, as the old saying goes, follow the money. And maybe it's unfair to say that Jordan Hudson is a gold digger, but there is this from the New York Post that she has been carving out a lucrative career as a real estate mogul in the 18 months since she has started dating him, amassing an impressive property portfolio worth $8 million. 24-year-old woman. I don't know what her family situation is. Her parents, maybe they're wealthy. I don't know. But it just seems that a 24-year-old woman getting $8 million worth of property in this short period of time, you got to have at least a co-signer and maybe the cash provided by Belichick. $8 million to him isn't much. I think he was making $20 million a year when he was with the Patriots, so he can certainly afford that. But she began, according to the New York Post, snapping up a host of multifamily homes in the greater Boston area in December 2023, property records reveal, just a few months after she was first seen spending time with him. And that, some of these are big mortgages. I've never taken out a mortgage this big. She took out a $1.2 million mortgage on the first house, a $2.2 million Dorchester townhouse that has been converted into 3 separate apartments. The listing suggests that Hudson has spent time renovating the property since she purchased it, calling attention to the beautiful updates. Well, you got to have cash for renovations, right? They're not cheap. And that she's, I guess she's incredibly leveraged, but she also may have a cosigner who can certainly back up those mortgages with the amount of money that he has earned and probably has put away. He's obviously not spending it on clothing, but in one listing, the property is described as a one-of-a-kind 3-family home that features a total of 15 bedrooms and 8.5 bathrooms spread across 3 separate units. It generates a rental income of $17,000 a month. This is high-end stuff. And at 24 years old, and her job is muse for Bill Belichick, I mean, it just doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. And he is, 73. He's not 93, but who knows where she's gotten in the will and things like that. His family has got to be worried about this, but if they come out publicly, then you got a real S-storm going on here. But this is not heading in the right direction, and I think it's summed up very well here towards the end of the conversation. Dan talking to Luke DeCock, the columnist for the Raleigh News and Observer, asking this question.
Over under 1.5 years for Belichick at North Carolina.
Under. I thought you were going to say wins. That was going to push me to.
That's a quick answer there, Luke.
It's going to be a beautiful disaster, Dan, like a monkey flying a 737. We all know how it's going to end, but we don't know how we're going to get there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would also look at the over-under this year for wins. 1.5 might not be that ridiculous of a suggestion. Look, he's coached grown men. He's coached men who had to get to the NFL and weren't given anything before they proved what they could do in college. Belichick spent a lot of time in this area, as a matter of fact, recruiting Gonzaga, recruiting DeMatha, maybe even Quince Orchard. He's looked at the top football schools around here in high school and is bringing in kids out of high school where you got to pay them these days. And, the way he has treated his players over the years, he treats Tom Brady the same as he does a third-string linebacker. And are you going to be able to get away with this with 18-year-old kids? I'm sure he's bringing in some guys from the transfer portal. The quarterback's coming in, I think, from Alabama State. It is a step up at North Carolina. And, North Carolina has never really been that big a factor in college football. They're a basketball school, and they're playing mostly against basketball schools. Outside of Clemson, there really isn't a football school in that conference. So I just really have my doubts about this. And, often things don't end well. There are people who reach high heights, and then at the end, it's a very sad ending. And it could be that for Bill Belichick. I mean, if he goes out this year at North Carolina and finishes the year with 2 or 3 wins and decides to walk away, you think somebody's going to hire him in the NFL? You think he's going to come back and do that? And even coming back and doing TV again, which I guess he could do. I don't know. I don't. And this whole thing with Jordan Hudson, I think there's a lot more that we don't know, and I think we may find out, or we may not. All right, we're out of time here. We've got Bram coming up next, and I will see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.